Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our Friday Drive. I'm going to be Sam, your host for today. Now, Harry Walker, you would have seen a couple of weeks ago in our Friday Drive, drove the RS5. Now today, I'm going to be driving his bigger brother in the RS7. So now we're in the car. I wanted to chat about a couple of really important things and a couple of synergies that maybe some people might not expect with this vehicle. Now, 2014 model. Firstly, it's got the carbon sort of interior here, which I absolutely love. More carbon the better, in my opinion. But it's super comfortable. You'll notice actually on the seats, particularly in the back and in the front, it's got like the hexagonal sort of stitching, which actually you can find in most Lamborghinis. And obviously Audi own Lamborghini, and there's another part of this car that transitions really well for Lamborghini and Audi and makes this car even more impressive in my opinion, which is the engine. Now, this engine, it's a 4-litre V8 turbo, produces about 700 Newton meters of torque, which is an awful lot. But this engine was actually taken by Lamborghini and modified ever so slightly and put straight into their brand new Urus. And for Lamborghini to say, actually, if we're going to put an engine in our car, what are we going to use? And they've used this engine. Shows how amazing this engine really is. Now, I have to say, compared to last week, today it's like 40 degrees nearly. I'm quite glad I'm in something with a little bit more comfort and a bit more luxury than last week, because last week I was absolutely roasting. As much as the Porsche was amazing to drive, see, the lack of technological advances in cooling for the car did play its role. Now, one really key thing for me with just Audi in general, but one thing I love about this car, you saw Harry previously talking about the sort of iconic oval exhaust shape. These things sound so good. Now we're coming up to a set of traffic lights, and you can kind of just like, as you down change, you can just hear it pop and crackle, and Audis tend to have this sort of specific burble to them. And you know when you hear it, it just sounds like an Audi. And I love that. As we accelerate, you can just hear it popping and spluttering, and just the delivery of power is so impressive. The brakes, we've got steel brakes on this, whereas the RS5 now had carbons that Harry drove. And to be honest with you, my personal opinion, it doesn't matter either way. Once you get a little bit of heat into the carbon ceramics, they're brilliant, but steelies are just as good. But for the road, it's not the most necessary thing. On track, obviously the carbon ceramics, once they get hot, they're super impressive, but for what we're doing here, we don't need them. Now, another thing that I think goes missing sometimes in cars, and I think Audi do this exceptionally well, is all the buttons down here and the way in which you use the infotainment system. They feel like real buttons. You can hear them clicking and you get that real feel of what they're doing. Now sometimes you drive a car and it's got this sort of haptic feedback and it's got touch and all these other things. Well, sometimes you try and do something and it takes you to a page you don't want. I can't stand that. If I turn the dial here, I want it to go exactly where I want. So when I'm flicking between comfort and dynamic or whatever it might be, I feel like everything I do goes exactly where I want it to go. And sometimes with other cars, you touch something here and it changes the radio station, or changes the song you're listening to, or something like that, and it just affects the way that you have your driving experience. Whereas with Audis particularly, and this car, everything just clicks into place as it should, and I really like that. So the actual driving experience. Now, this is the part that I enjoy the most, and I've driven these cars on circuit and they're brilliant. Now with the drive on the road, this feeling I get while I'm driving, you've got the steering wheel in a really nice position, the customizability of the seat and the steering wheel is great. I spoke about a couple of other cars that sometimes you can't get that feeling. This, you get it in abundance. If I want to bring this closer or further away, I get all the options. Nice classic sort of flat bottom steering wheel there. Every movement I take, particularly when I'm in dynamic mode, as I'm coming through a corner here, it's extremely responsive. And now there's a big difference between it being responsive and it being too sharp. Now, if it's too sharp, well, then sometimes I feel like it's a bit darty and it's too direct, particularly for the road. Now on track, that's not a problem, but as I'm driving on the road, I want it just to be just nice and responsive. And I feel like as I'm steering and turning and the way the car moves, it really does that in abundance. For a car that is still fairly heavy, it's actually surprisingly sharp in the way that the steering is. And that's it for this week's Friday drive. So please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, first on Instagram, and of course, we'll see you next time.